Hi everybody, and welcome to this Albion Business School short course, part of our broader short course offering, which is all about starting a business. Now, my name is Dr. Matthew Rogers-Draycott. I am one of the founders and trustees of Albion Business School, and I'll be joining you today to talk about creating business models, which is a really interesting, diverse, and incredibly important area of this whole topic of how do we build a company. And often it is a starting point, or certainly a midpoint in that process of creating something that is really impactful and important and useful for us to go and build something else from. So I hope you find this video really useful. I found it really interesting, and look forward to being with you for the next round about half an hour. So what are we going to focus on today? We are going to identify the elements of a business model canvas, and I'm going to show you how to prepare a canvas and to discuss your idea. So without further ado, let's get started on the canvas as a whole. So we'll start with what is a business model. A business model describes how we organize the component parts of a business. And fundamentally, businesses have lots of different models. They can be transactional, i.e. we can give somebody money to buy a product from them. We might license our intellectual property to a toy manufacturer to make something, or to a car company to build or design something. We might aggregate, we might bring people together in that kind of Uber model. There's lots of ways that we can structure a business, and that's really what a model captures. Fundamentally, it's capturing how we deliver value. That's really important, because without value, nobody's going to buy anything, to a particular customer. And those customers are key, because if we don't deliver value to a customer, nobody's going to buy anything. And it describes the whole process of that value transfer, from the relationships we build with that customer, to the channels we use, to the revenue model, to the way we make profit, the way the whole business gets costed out. It's a really complex little creature, but actually it encapsulates the whole of the business and how we do everything. So what are the building blocks of a business model canvas? Well, there are 9, and the canvas we're going to use here is the most widely known business model canvas. It was designed by Alexander Osterwalder and Yves Pinguet around about 15 years ago as part of Alexander Osterwalder's PhD. It was very popular as part of the lean startup craze, methodology, approach to designing businesses, wherein fundamentally we were looking at how do we model something, create it, and ideally fail it relatively quickly, so if it's not working, we can move on. So the traditional canvas has 9 elements. Customer segments and value proposition, we've already talked about, are really at its core. Channels, the way we deliver that value to the customer, and the relationship we build with them are ancillary to that. The revenue streams that we then create from that, the resource that we need to do it, the activities that underpin it, the partnerships that help to create it, and the cost structures that really tie everything together. Those are all the elements that we need to check work coherently with our overall model for the thing to operate. And this is what a canvas looks like. You can download one of these. We'll provide you with one as well that you can use. There are electronic versions of this that you can fill in, but the paper version is just great. And you can write on these, you can use post-it notes, do anything you want to map out that business. You can color code, you can go just wild and crazy, have absolute utter fun with this, and really see where that takes you. So we'll start with customer segments. These are the people who your organization is creating value for, your customers. Okay, now in complex models, you might have customers and users. Let's take Google, for example. We are all Google's users generally. We're not necessarily all Google's customers. We don't all pay Google for products or services. Traditionally, Google sold our data to larger organizations and they were its customers. So that's what's called a two-sided model, where you have a customer and a user. The user is providing something still. They're still providing something of value, but in this case, it's data. And that data is something that then can be sold on to another customer. However, most models are much simpler. Most models are transactional, and that could be whether we're trading business to customer or business to business, i.e. we have a product or service, we take it to that business or customer, they give us money for it because of the value they find in it. Now, depending on the type of business you've got, you may have more than one customer that you're appealing to, and that's absolutely fine. Actually, it's a good thing sometimes to have multiple customer segments that you're appealing to, especially early on in a business, but not too many, because not everybody is your customer, and we're not trying to have everybody be our customer. So what's ideal when we're looking at an early stage canvas? Well, 2 to 3 segments is probably ideal. And what we mean by segments is micro personas, where we've got some basic demographic, sociographic, psychographic information. Let me map that out for you for a second. What I'm talking about there is describing somebody. So, hi, I'm Matt, I'm a university professor, I'm in my 40s, I have 3 children, I live here, I earn this much, I behave in this way. That's the kind of information you want to build around that little pre-persona. Now, if you're doing that for a business, you can be much more direct. You can talk about the types of business that are similar to this that you are going to target. But actually, when you're describing customers, it's more complicated. We've got to talk more about behaviors and understand really if behavior matches value. Now, ideally, what we're looking to do here is underpin that with data as well. So we're looking to support those kind of conclusions, perspectives, ideas. And we've got to connect those via the channels and relationships in a cogent and sensible fashion. So if we're trying to get to a business customer, our channels are going to be very direct because that's how you generally work with businesses, and our relationship's quite personal. If we're building a backpack or a wallet and we're selling to a broader market, then it may be more online, more automated. It very much depends on your view on how you start the business and what you think those customers need initially to transact with you. So here's some cool examples that I've brought in from previous pieces of work, and students have given me permission to use these. And these really look at different ways of capturing that. Now, I'm not going to talk about all of these, but let's just pick that top one. Tom is a 55-year-old farmer who owns combinable crops, large 200-hectare farm, lots of high-tech precision farming equipment, various sensors, but struggles to get value from his data. So there we've got some age data, we know what his career is like, we know about what Tom does, and we know what value he's looking for in the product he's going to buy. He's looking for a way to connect up all the different bits of data he's got and make sense of it. That's a really ideal example of a pre-persona, and all the ones here are good examples for different reasons. The doctor example is great because it really gets into the head of what he's going to be looking for. And our other example down here, a little bit differently laid out, but still really good because it talks about that whole picture of who the person is and how it all connects in. Segments are separate if they're different. If they've got different wants and needs, reach the different channels, require different types of relationship, different profitabilities, willing to pay for different bits of it, they're different. And so that's where you want to split them out, where you want to have different segments aiming at different things. And remember, not everybody is your customer. That's incredibly important. We're not trying to please anyone. If we do, ultimately, this thing will probably fail. So what's the value proposition? Well, this is what we're trying to deliver to the customer. Now, value is a complicated thing to understand. So the simple way I like to explain it to people is it's all about benefit. What's the benefit to the customer of your product or service, and how does that endure? We might be starting this from a problem perspective, i.e., what problems do we solve? We might be starting this from a value perspective, i.e., what value do we deliver? Value can be quantitative or it can be qualitative. It can be price, speed of service, or it can be design, quality, experience. There's lots of different ways you can phrase that and frame it. Go and look at what different companies in the market are doing, how they are phrasing and framing their value, and you will see that huge range of options and opportunities. And then it's really down to you to pick the value proposition for that segment. Now, one value proposition might appeal to multiple segments, or you might have several propositions, each appealing to slightly different segments. Either way, that's absolutely fine. I wouldn't have more than 4, as I've put here. That tends to get quite complicated, and also you'd have more segments probably than propositions at that point. It's all about benefits and barriers. So what are we trying to overcome here? And we've talked about that previously as well, so you can pull up from that. And propositions fundamentally need to be supported by data again. Why does this thing work in the market? Why is somebody going to be interested in it? Here's some good examples. Again, I won't look at all of these, but we'll take that one that links to the previous one that we've looked at. So this is linked to the Tom customer that we've already talked about. This business is about enabling farmers to increase yields and cut costs by combining their data from their existing disparate systems and generating insightful analytics and holistic farm view in a user-friendly reporting platform. The frustrations of the farmers not being able to get good use of their data in the disconnected and complicated systems highlighted in a recent conference, blah. So what we've got there is we've got a clear benefit to the farmer. They connect up their data, they increase yield. And we know what's bugging them, they can't do that. So in that value proposition, really clearly, we've got the benefit and we've got the barrier. And we know how that links into the value that the customer is looking for. So we've got that really clear relationship, and this is what you should be aiming for when you create and build your canvas. So channels, these are the touch points through which you interact with that customer to deliver that value. Channels can be direct or indirect. So we might be going direct to a customer, or we might be marketing to them through partners or the websites or wholesalers. There's lots of different ways we can do that. I'm not going to go through all of these. And you can have different phases in which channels work. We can generate awareness, we can get to purchasing, delivery, etc. Fundamentally, what you're trying to think about here is what is your overarching strategy for sales and marketing, and how is that going to operate? Channels need to be specific and clearly linked to a segment. So if, for instance, we were trying to get to Tom, there'd be no point in using Instagram or TikTok or social media that targets younger people. It's just not going to work. So we need to think about which channels we're choosing and how that's going to get to them. If I were going to Tom, for instance, I'm going to find him at conferences, at farming events, potentially through local networking groups that are linked to agriculture, and maybe through some broader advertising in farming related trade magazines, for example. But I'm not going to find him on TikTok or Facebook or anywhere like that. And if I do, it's probably not where he wants to be marketed to. So understanding kind of where your customer lives and sits and how you want to market to them through those channels is really, really key. So again, here we've got that kind of example of linking to Tom. I won't use the other one here, but we'll just focus on the Tom one. Press, farming events, advertising, website, etc. All quite direct ways of contacting him as well, because that's the sort of relationship this thing needs. It needs a very direct contact. And that brings us on to relationships. What's the type of relationship you're establishing with your customer? Relationships are all about how we interact with people. If we go into a supermarket, relationships tend to be quite automated. A slight personal service with some of the staff, but more and more automated now. If we look at something like the web, it's highly automated, big sales funnels. We don't have a lot of interaction or access or activity with anybody. So actually, the relationships we establish with customers are really key, and the relationships need to be linked to the value proposition and the customer we're delivering to. Oops, sorry, I skipped a slide then. So when we're looking at relationships, these are some good examples of them. Different ways that we can talk about relationships, but fundamentally, relationships match those points, and the type of relationship is really what you need to be thinking of. So these are some other examples. If we look at the second example here, it's about transactional. It's heavy elements of personal service because it's business to business, and elements of co-creation. If we think about the Tom example that we've looked at previously, to get to Tom, it's going to be quite personal in terms of how we get to him, contact him, and work with him. And here's some kind of terminology around that: personal assistant, dedicated personal assistant, self-service, automated service, communities, co-creation. You can look up all of those and see what they all mean and think about different ways you might want to use them in the context of what you're doing. Fundamentally, again, you can have the same channel for multiple customer segments and the same channel for multiple value propositions, or you can divide them up a little bit more. It really depends on the nature of the business, the value, and the customers that you're targeting, and how that all begins to fit together. And then depending on how all that fits together, depends on how you balance all of that out. Revenue streams. How are we going to make money out of this? How are we going to price it? How are we going to generate value? How are we going to realize income from that value? So what we're looking for in this section really is the revenue model, methodology, pricing strategy, key figures, and any kind of little projections that you've got. So the revenue model overall is, how do you make money? i.e., is it transactional or is it something else? The methodology is how you go about doing that, and that should include the pricing strategy. So are you right at the top of the market with a premium price? Are you midpoint? Are you coming in to try and capture market share and then build up what we'd call penetration pricing? Or are you right at the bottom? Are you in a kind of very economy pricing model? Whatever your pricing model is, all of that needs to be communicated really clearly, and again, supported by data, references to competitors, other models, ideas drawn from research. That's really what we're looking for here, to see that you can show this in a more logical, reasoned way. Types of revenue stream that you might look at. So product or asset sale. Fundamentally, we're selling something to you. A usage fee. So renting something, for example. You're going to use something and give me money for it. A subscription fee, a regular recurring fee where you get a service from me. Lending, renting or letting. Again, similar to a usage fee, but fundamentally, you get the idea. Licensing, where I own some intellectual property and I charge you to use it. Brokerage fees, where I do something on your behalf and then take a fee for that. And finally, kind of advertising or systems whereby I might be working on your behalf in an agent kind of capacity, or again, I'm taking a fee for that somewhere in the middle. So any of those revenue streams and many, many more could be the one that you use. It's up to you to decide, again, which one suits your model, and again, whether it's realistic based on the market, the environment, the situation you find yourself in. Types of pricing strategy, cost plus, simplest version. We've got a product, we know it costs this much, we're going to add a percentage to it, 20, 30, 40%, and that's how we're going to price it. The problem with that is it's not very reactive to the market. We don't really know if that's what the market wants or needs or will tolerate. So it's a difficult strategy to make work. Skimming. This is where we're going to come in, take the top of the market to generate revenue, and then reinvest that into something lower down the market. A good example of that would be somebody like Tesla. Elon Musk started with very expensive cars, reinvested it into making the Model 3 as more of a mass market. The other companies that do this a lot are drugs and medicine companies. Penetration pricing. This is where we're going to come in the middle of the market and try to capture market share. Lots of Japanese, Korean companies did this in the 80s and 90s. So companies like Hyundai, for example, or Kia, or even companies like LG, all came in with very keen pricing and then have used that to build market share and work their way up the market. Premium pricing is where we're just going to come in at a premium price and aim at a premium customer. Absolutely fine. And psychological pricing is where we're going to price with those kind of 99p low price strategies that draw people in, but fundamentally the risk there is if you're price competitive and you're only price competitive, that's the risk of your model, because somebody else can come along, be a lower price than you, and take your market share away from you. So all of those comes with risks and benefits. If you're at the top of the market, it's a nice place to be. If you're at the bottom of the market, it's a risky place to be. Resources. These are the things we need to do your model, and it's what's indispensable. It's not everything. We don't want a big list here of every possible resource you might need, because it becomes quite generic. So what are the key resources you need to make your business work? That's really what we're looking for here. It's what contributes, I would suggest, to your competitive advantage. So if it's a location or a piece of technology or a product that you have that's unique, a food that you have, or something that you give, or something you serve, or something you know that makes you different and unique and interesting, that's what we're looking for here. And that's what we're looking for you to describe in that resources section. So some examples is it could be, as I said, physical, a location or a product. It could be intellectual, something in your mind. It could be human, people you work with, or it could be financial, some capital that you have that other people don't have. All of those could be key resources that you want to talk about in the context of your model. Key activities. These are the things that are central to your model. Again, it's not everything you do. It's what are the most important things that you do that help your model to actually work. Similar to resources here, don't put everything in. Put in the things that give you competitive advantage. So it could be your production system, it could be how you serve people, it could be how you problem solve with people, or it could be something like your platform or network. That's what we're looking for here. Not really very difficult. Partnerships. Who do you need to work with to make your business work? So again, ideally here we're looking for detail of the partner, the contribution, why you're selecting them, and some kind of link to a website or an address. Try and be specific here. And again, it's not every partner, Maybe it's somebody you rent a property from. Maybe it's somebody you buy a particular product from. Maybe it's somebody who works to produce something. If they're key to your competitive advantage, that's what we're looking for here. Not a big, expansive, exhaustive list where we just try to put everybody in there and see how it all rolls out. And finally, we've got cost structures. So this is where we look at, do all of these elements together work? And really in this model, we're looking for the cost model, the figures, and the projections. And this is where you tie it all together. You've got your pricing, you know how much things are going to cost, you know if everything else fits together. Now, actually, when you look at the costs, is this thing going to be profitable? Are you going to make sufficient margin to be sustainable, to grow, to develop? Because margin's really key. Margin's where this thing lives or dies. Examples of models here, it could be cost driven, that you're trying to minimize your costs, or it could be value driven, that actually you don't really care about your costs because you've got a premium product and it's about delivering that experience to the customer. Types of costs you need to discuss: fixed costs, so things that don't change depending on how much you produce; variable costs, things that do; economies of scale, depending on how big you get; economies of scope, depending on how broad you get. So these are where you might potentially make savings across your market. These are the sorts of things we'd be expecting you to discuss in this element of the model. And back to the model here. So that's what it is. So now we've walked you through it. It's really over to you to go away, fill this out, complete it, and see if you can model your business. And really, at the end of that process, the key thing to do is to reflect on that and ask yourself a question of, does it work? And if it does or doesn't, that will give you a good steer as to whether this is a business that you should be investing time in. I hope you found that useful. I really want you to go off and do some of this now. Go off and build a canvas. Go off and see what works. Don't worry if some bits aren't fully completed. Try and have a go and see where that takes you. And I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Goodbye.